and welcome everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here tonight. My name is James Martin, and this is, of course, the inaugural Dentists Who Invest, Community Group for Dentists Who Enjoy Tradings podcast. And I didn't really expect to be sat here in any capacity in front of a computer at any point, but really I'm just so pleased that the group has just got to the level of what it is. I didn't expect the first thing when I set it up. I've been on a few podcasts. I think they're an absolutely wonderful medium or a vehicle to explain and elaborate on certain topics. And I'm really, really happy to be able to be here and be able to do this for everybody tonight. And what I've managed to do, I've managed to procure someone who's quite well known in the dentistry world, or at least I knew of him. I think quite a few people have heard of him. He is the founder, the owner of Dental Property Club. He is formerly a dentist, or so he has just advised me. He now focuses fully on his business. So in that respect of capacity, I would say he might be living the dream for a lot of us dentists, I suppose. He's managed to get out. So hats off to the guy. He must really know what he's doing is all I can say. His name, in case you haven't heard of him, his name is Harry Singh. Harry, how are you tonight? Welcome.
Thank you, James. Welcome. Yeah, I'm living the life. You can see the background. I'm on the beach, on the sand. There's no lockdown over here.
So Harry is living it up in the Bahamas, in case you must have deduced that from the background. So he's doing pretty well for himself. Not over here in cold England during lockdown.
No.
But we're making the best. We're doing our best over here, Harry. That's all we can say.
No.
Anyway, I'm absolutely thrilled to have Harry on here tonight. He is, of course, an expert in the field of property. He was formerly a dentist. I thought it would be really interesting to have him on because we can chat, we can discuss, we can elaborate on something that I don't know really much about, but I know a lot of people that are interested in, and it does of course affect all of us at some stage in our life because we all have to think about buying a house. So we're going to delve into that a little bit in future. So the first thing I wanted to ask, Harry, I just wanted to know a little bit about you because we know, well, I know the business. I know Harry Singh, Dental Property Club. I know a little bit about what you offer. We're going to delve into that a little bit later. But I just wanted to know a little bit about your journey and maybe what made you think I want to get out of dentistry, or maybe it just happened organically. I don't know. So I'm curious.
No, thank you again, James, for the invitation. Fantastic group. I qualified as a dentist. Being from a typical Asian parents, I didn't really have much choice in my career back in the 1990s. My parents said to me, either become a doctor, dentist, accountant, pharmacist, something to do with medical. I was good at science, good with my hands. Went to the local library. For those youngsters that don't know what a library is where you get the books. There was no Google or internet in those days. And I looked at careers, and dentistry sprung to my mind. Went to do some work experience with my local dentist. Saw his watch, saw his car. I go, okay, that sounds good. I'll have some of that. And then did dentistry because I liked the business side. So I knew I wanted to own a business to some extent. And it was much harder being a doctor or optician in those days to do that. So dentistry, but then I knew early on that I didn't have the real passion for dentistry. And that's quite important, which we'll come on to later on, especially investment vehicles where you need to have a passion in what you're doing vocation, but also what you're investing in as well, because you look after it a lot more. I don't regret getting into dentistry because it got me the skills, the experience, becoming a business owner, bought and sold a number of dental practices, made some fantastic contacts, networked a lot. So I don't regret getting into dentistry, but it wasn't my true passion. And we say to people, I gave up dentistry so I qualified in 96 from Leeds, and I enjoyed it to some extent. So I was a course junkie. I was doing all the courses. My dentistry was good. It was just the stress with timekeeping, patience, etc. And I said to many people, if dentistry was a bit like phantom head, patients could chop their head off, leave it in the surgery, come back at 5 p.m. to pick it up, I would do that all day and all night.
The hard part about teeth is they're attached to people. That's advantage, isn't it?
Yeah. So I enjoyed the clinical side and the technical side, but it's just dealing with patients that didn't really want to see you. You do your best work, and obviously with the GDC as the way it is, it's always on the patient's side. So I knew early on, and then we always go back to a strong, compelling why. So I knew I wouldn't be doing dentistry for the next 20, 40 years there. So I go, okay, I needed some alternative source of income, and I looked at property, because I remember when I was about 14, 15, used to do a newspaper round. One of the guys I did a newspaper round for, he wasn't there on a Sunday. He left me a note on the door saying, keep the newspaper. So it was a Sunday Times. And if you've ever read the Sunday Times, it's quite a big chunk. So I think I killed my back carrying it back home. And luckily on that week was the Sunday Times rich list. So I looked at all the people. So there's a top 100 people in the UK. And I looked at it, and 80% of people on that top 100 list either made their money directly from property, or they had made their money from business and invested the profits from into property. So I'm always a big believer, copy what other people do, learn from them. So I thought, okay, that's going to be my weapon of choice vehicle that I'm going to invest in. So I just started educating myself in property. And it was quite funny. So I started at qualified in 96, 98, 99, started going to property workshops, property courses. And it was quite funny because you get to network with people and they say, what do you do? And most of them were IT consultants or unemployed, etc. That's why they want to get into property. When I said I was a dentist, they were quite shocked that a dentist was actually at the course. We could go, you make good money, why are you here? I go, yeah, I make good money while I'm working, but when I'm not working, I'm losing money. I'm not making the best use of money. So that's why I wanted that income stream. And as we mentioned before we started recording, during the first lockdown, by the time this recording comes out, it might be on our 5th lockdown by then. So on the first lockdown,
the way things are at the minute, who knows? Yeah,
especially with that, it doesn't make sense with the furlough being extended to March, but then Boris Johnson saying the lockdown's only until December. So those two don't add up.
Suspicious that, we need to. Well, I didn't even really take the possibility that lockdown 2 would happen seriously. I just thought it seemed rather simple in my head that once we had one, it would be over and done with. But I don't know, it seems a bit silly looking back, but here we are. Yeah, people don't listen or people don't follow there. So during lockdown 1, we had so many inquiries for the Dental Property Club. I've always been telling people, okay, you need to have a backup plan, because when you're earning, if you're earning good money, it's good. It's not going to last forever. You may become ill. I wasn't expecting COVID to come along. You may not be able to work. Something may happen to your practice. What are you going to do with your income then? And we had a lot of dentists saying, okay, it's never going to happen to me, because you never think it's going to happen to you. And then with this lockdown, number one, most of the dentists couldn't work and their income dropped dramatically. And then you've probably seen yourself with your Facebook group, people were looking at alternative sources, not of income, because I always look at investment as making your money from business, your vocation, and then investing those profits in investment vehicles, whether it's shares, stocks, or property. Very few people make their money from the stock market, forex, or property as a business. So it's making your money working harder, not actually making money as your primary vocation. Well, yeah, I mean, it's part of this wider sort of theme that my group touches on quite a lot, which is, just as you say, making your money work for yourself. And I think for me, what shattered the illusion of just how much we almost miss out by just keeping our money in the bank. I mean, the rate that inflation is normally about 6 or 7%. And to think that you're losing 6 or 7% of the hours or effort that you're putting in a year is just ludicrous to me. So you'll be coming at it from the point of view of houses, diversifying into property, and this is why I thought it would be really interesting. And you're quite right. Just another thing that you touched upon there, this whole COVID, kind of this new paradigm, or how the world is going to be going forwards. We don't know when we're actually going to get a vaccine for COVID. And I just think it's really important to think about these things. And as you say, just make your money work for you. But you'll go into more detail in just a moment about how to do that with houses. I'm actually really curious to hear, because I don't know the first thing about houses. I really honestly don't know the first thing. I know what stamp duty is, I think, anyway. Maybe you'll correct me later. And that's who this podcast is really aimed at, is just people that, like myself, they're very much beginners. They want to foray into the housing world. But yeah,
definitely.
We'll come to that in just a moment. So, Harry, in my group, I touch upon stocks, I touch upon gold, we touch upon diversifying. Why do you think that property is a useful method of diversifying your portfolio? What does property offer that other asset classes may not necessarily offer?
Yeah, excellent question there. So I always say, obviously, start with your why. Why do you want to invest in property? But what I see my advantage is with property is an asset. So an asset is something that appreciates in value. It's not going to go up every year. You're going to have peaks and troughs, but the trend is always upwards. Because we live in an island, there's restricted space on how many properties we can build. And on average, year on year, we have a net immigration of 250,000 people. And the maximum number of houses we've ever built in any particular year is 100,000. And that's the best year. So there's always going to be a shortage. Demand is going to outstrip supply. So long term, it's going to appreciate in value. The second reason is leverage, which is the main reason I invest in properties. So you can put a small percentage into the property, but you benefit 100% from the uplift. So let's say you've got £100,000. You could buy a property, let's say, worth 500,000 because you could put 20% deposit. The bank would give you the remaining amount because they know it's an asset. But if you want to invest in, say, £500,000 worth of shares, you cannot go to a bank and say, I've got 100,000. Can you give me 400,000 to invest in shares? They'll probably lock you up or throw you out the bank. So that's the beauty there. So if the property goes up in value, you benefit 100%, but you've put a smaller amount of money in. The third reason is where people get really confused is good debt versus bad debt. So if you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, then you know bad debt you want to clear as quick as possible. That's personal credit card, car finance, etc. It's coming out your own pocket and it's on a liability. Good debt is on an asset that you don't pay yourself. So we're going to be getting tenants that pay us rent, which covers the mortgage, the bills, utilities, and then we have excess money coming in after all those costs. So with good debt, you can leverage your money, but it's an appreciating asset, but it doesn't come out of your own pocket. And then the fourth is deposits. So this is a downside with property. So unlike shares or stocks, you cannot get in for a few £100. You do need a few £1,000s, which is what I thought, because when I first invested in property, I thought these guys that got 30, 50 properties, they must have millions in the bank. But it's one of my mentors said to me early on, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. So what we can do is recycle our deposit, or there's certain strategies where you don't need a deposit. So a lot of people do think you need a lot of money to get into property. Yeah, the more money you have, the better deals you can do, the better rates you get. But you can start off with a lot less money than people think. So it's an asset. You can use the benefit of leverage. It's good debt, and there's a way of getting away with minimal deposits or no deposits at all.
Wow, okay, so we got some decent compelling reasons there, and a few things that I didn't necessarily know as well. What was I going to say? When you talked about the very minimum, am I right in saying that it's 5% you can bring to the table nowadays? 5% of the value of the house? Or is it 10%? Is it still 10%?
Yeah, it's. I would say, yeah. So there's buy to let and residential. So residential, you may be able to get away with 5 or 10%. Buy to let, you're looking more at 15 to 20% deposits.
Oh, I see. I didn't even know there was a difference.
Yeah. So
first-time buyers out there, they're 5%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get. I'll say the lowest you could put in a buy to let would be 15%. I don't recommend 15% because there's less lenders there and their interest rates are quite high. So we normally say minimum 20% of loan to value, and then you'll get access to more lenders that will give you better deals, and there's a more cushion as well, because you don't want to over leverage. Leverage is good, but you don't want to over leverage in case there's a downturn or interest rates go up and you can't, your rent doesn't cover the mortgage.
Right, yeah, of course. And that comes back to, now again, I'm coming at it from the point of view of a total novice here. I hope this is of benefit to people listening. The mortgages that you can get, you can, am I right in saying there's a tracker mortgage, and then there's also a type of mortgage that the interest doesn't vary? So those are also things that you would talk someone through on your course. Is my understanding of it correct there?
Yeah. So there's two variations in mortgages. The first one, as you said, will be a fixed rate or a tracker rate. So a fixed rate, you pay the same interest for 3 to 5 years, whatever the period is. The tracker obviously follows the base rate. But the other point with mortgages as well is interest only and capital. Mm-hmm. So with your buy-to-let properties, you have two choices. You can get interest only mortgages where you're just paying the interest off, or you can get capital and interest where you're paying the capital in the interest. It all depends on your strategy. So if your strategy is to get maximum cash flow, you want an interest only mortgage. If your strategy is to get a better pension pot, a lump sum at the end, then you'd want interest and capital repayment.
Right, I see. So this is the nuance that I was sort of unaware of. But okay, interesting to learn. One thing I wanted to ask, Harry, Help to Buy ISAs and LISAs, we're fed this narrative that we should save, we should put money into those. Is that what you would suggest? Or do you think that there is a better way of maybe undertaking that? I know that the benefits of what they offer, should you have some money in, is 25%. So that's a fair old whack of money towards a house, you know what I mean? Particularly if you're saving short term versus other investments. What's your take on the subject?
Yeah, and it was funny, during the first lockdown, I ran an online program. We had a couple of young dentists, just like yourself, and they were asking exactly the same question. And I never heard about it, so I did my own research. But no, it's actually a fantastic scheme, and I would encourage people to take maximum advantage of it. So any government assistance you can get, then I would definitely recommend to go for it.
Yeah, they look good on paper, I have to say. 25%, wow. Over a short period, a guarantee over a short period of time. It's hard to beat that in terms of investing.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, where were we? So the next thing I wanted to ask, so the other thing I wanted to ask, when you have a property and you think to yourself, wow, this is a cash cow, wow, sign me up, where do I buy? Or you get you have another property and it's at the other end of the scale and you think, whoa, I need to steer clear of this for whatever reason. What are your succinct, I suppose, list or common pitfalls of things that people should watch out for when they're buying a house? There's going to be a list of completely obvious greenhorn mistakes that probably people like myself will make all the time, and I'm sure from people such as yourself it'll draw a sort of eye roll expression on your face. I don't really know, but I just wanted to know what those are and what we should watch out for.
So no, don't worry, everyone makes mistakes. I've probably made more mistakes in property than all your viewers put together. I remember my first house I bought, I was so eager to get the deal done. My surveyor comes in and said, do you realize there's no doors or radiators in the rooms? Which obviously I completely missed out there. So the first thing I would always say is take emotion out of it. So this is not a residential purchase. You are not going to live there yourself. So I've spoken to many dentists that have bought penthouses in town centres, and it's the worst returns you can ever get. I go, why do you buy that? And they say, because I like to live there myself. And I go, you're not living there. A tenant's going to live there. So if you look at my houses, for most dentists, they wouldn't want to live there. It's normally 2/3 bedroom terrace houses. So take your emotion out of it. Number two, don't rush into your first deal, because people are so eager to do a deal. They'll just pay over the top, especially at this particular period of time where we've got the stamp duty exemption. People are just paying stupid money. It's going over market value. And then my main strategy is, obviously, one is look at your strategy. Are you buying it for capital gain or cash flow? So a lot of dentists say, I want to reduce my commitment to dentistry. I'm going to say, okay, you need maximum cash flow. So you might need to invest in the Midlands or further north, or maybe do a HMO where you rent the room by room in the house. If you're after a better pension pot, then you're going to be investing maybe in London, the South East, where historically you get a better capital growth. So know why you're investing in the property. As I mentioned, look at the area. You want good amenities, good transport links. So what I do in my course, we do a gross yield figure. So the gross yield is the annual rent divided by the market value. And we want that to be above 6%. So the annual rent divided by the market value, we want that to be above 6%. Anything above 6%, that will show you is a high demand from tenants. Because once you've got the property, maybe a fantastic deal, maybe in the middle of nowhere in the sticks, if no one's going to rent it, you're going to be paying the mortgage out your own pocket. So if you've got a gross yield of above 6%, you know there's going to be a big tenant demand. You're going to get that easily rented and minimize the voids there. And then, as I said, alluded to earlier, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. So we look for motivated or distressed sellers where they need to sell quite quickly. And in that way, we can buy at discount and recycle our money much quicker there. So don't rush into your first deal. Don't buy an emotion. You are not living there. See what the tenants want. Because if it's in a city centre, it may be more flats, apartments, young people that want to live city living. If it's in a school commute area, it's going to be more 2-3 bedroom houses there. Look at your area, look at the price you're paying, and look at what you're doing it for, cash flow, capital gain. Have spreadsheets. And what I do is a simple equation. Just look at a spreadsheet, do your figures. Does it stack up? Take the emotion out of it. And is it a good deal or not a good deal?
It's interesting to hear you say that people also make bad decisions in purchasing houses based on emotion, because that's one of the golden rules of general investing. I suppose I just never really thought of houses in those terms as well, but it's interesting that also applies. I guess we're all just people, and no matter what we do, no matter where we're putting our money, we kind of
emotion. It's the emotion.
Cloud our judgment. You know what I mean?
And they decorate the place like they're going to live there themselves. I remember I tried Forex for a couple of years, and I like action, quick results, and I wasn't a patient guy, so poker and Forex were not for me. So because the wrong mindset.
Forex is not actually. Do you know what? Forex is one of the assets that you can trade most frequently, as well, in my experience. So if that wasn't enough action for you, I think maybe those other sorts of investing mightn't be for you either. Because I know I put money in crypto, and you'll probably go for about 2 months where you won't make a trade, and then all of a sudden it's like bang, bang, bang. But it's actually a skill in itself to wait until the right time to do that. And there is such a thing as overtrading, and those are the people that get impatient, and they want something to happen, so they turn up with their computer screen and they wind up blowing all their money.
That's me.
Got you right. Yeah. So Forex, you can do. I believe it's better to do it on certain days than others. It's all about watching the sessions. So I used to trade it a little bit. So when London opens, the stock exchange opens, the market will move in certain ways on certain pairs. So it's an interesting one. That's my understanding of it anyway. But anywho, I think what I'm getting from you is that if you're going to do it, if you're going to invest in property, there's a lot of nuance to it. You really, really need to know what you're doing. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, you got to treat it like a business, like your dental business. It is a business.
Yeah, so fair enough. There's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of know-how. There's a lot of skill, I suppose, in a way. In your business, Dental Property Club, how do you assist dentists to get into property? Is it purely an educational course, or is there some sort of mentorship capacity offered to them in a degree where you'll come and, I don't know, explore looking at houses together? I'd love to hear.
So as I said earlier, I gave up dentistry in 2012, and my intention was just to carry on property investing on my own. Then because not many dentists were giving up dentistry in 2012. So the first reaction I had from most dentists were, "Did you get struck off?" I go, "No, don't worry, I haven't been struck off. I'm still on the register. This is my GDC number." So then they said, "Okay, how did you give up dentistry?" And I said, "Because of property." And they go, "Oh, you never told us you were into property." I go, "There was no reason to tell you. Can you teach us?" So that's where Dental Property Club was formed in 2012, mainly educational workshops, because I thought everyone was going to be like me, because I had a strong, compelling why that I wanted to get out of dentistry. That's why I implemented. But then what I found after a couple of years, the people that came in the course said, it was good content, learned a lot. After 2 years, they never implemented anything. And I said, why? They go, "Okay, we haven't got the time, we haven't got the network, we don't trust the builders, we're too busy with dentistry." So then we created 2 arms of the Dental Property Club. So we've got the educational workshops, which range from online programs to 2-day workshops to mastermind mentoring. So those are for people that want to do the property deals themselves. I give them all the resources, the materials, the templates, the spreadsheets, and they can go out and do it themselves. Then we created the second arm about a couple of years ago, the joint venture opportunities. So a lot of dentists said to me, we've got the money, we're cash rich, time poor. We want to invest in property, but we haven't got the time to do it or the experience. Can we give you the money? So I took all their money, and that's why I'm in the Bahamas now. So no, only
let's cut the interview right there. Whoa,
yeah, that's it. Yeah. So because we've got the opportunities, we've got the network, we know the deal sources, we get so many opportunities presented to us on a monthly basis that I cannot physically do all the deals myself. So I'd rather have a smaller split of a bigger pie than a bigger split of a very small pie. So that's where the joint venture opportunities came along. So we're dentists, happy with dentistry, don't want to give up dentistry, but want to make better use of their money. We are regulated, it's all due diligence. We present deals, and if they want to invest, they can invest in our deals.
Interesting. So there's a variety of things, I suppose, there, really,
yeah.
that you'll assist dentists with. So it's right from the fundamentals, just the education, right up to if they did want to take the plunge, you'll be there by their side.
Yeah,
I've grasped that correctly, haven't I?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Thumbs up, smashing. Cool. I was browsing on your website earlier, Harry, and I came across something. It was an acronym, I suppose, or a method that you use to invest. I'm just looking. Hope you don't think I'm being rude. I'm just going to read it off here. It's a bit of a mouthful. There's a few letters. Passive income, investment income, savings, and the simplify formula. And am I right in saying that's your philosophy on investing? Or so I gathered from the website anyway. What is that?
Yeah, definitely. And I got taught by this in America by a billionaire in terms of how the wealthy make their money, but also keep more of their money. Because the actual easy part is making the money. What easier is how much money you keep. So the first two is passive income and investment income. So you need a combination of both. And one of the biggest mistakes property investors make, and I made it, is every property deal I did, I kept. And you got to be like a football manager. Some of them are good players, some of them are bad players. You got to get rid of the bad players, substitute them with good players. So you need a combination of passive income where you've got properties that you let out. They work at the background, giving you a good couple of hundred, 300 quid a month. But obviously you're not going to become financially free straight away. So what you need is some investment income where you make a capital gain. So you are going to be doing some buying and selling, whether it's houses, stock shares, trading, where you make a capital gain, but you can reinvest that money. So you do need the passive income, which is, I say, slow and boring, like the marathon. You will become wealthy, but it's long-term wealth. And investment income, which is much shorter, a bit like a trader. You could have the day trader and the long-term trader there. So you need a combination of both. But as I said, that's how you make the money. And then the hardest part, especially for dentists, I find, is how much money they keep. So the two S's stand for savings and simplify. So the savings, I divide my money into 6 jars before I spend a single penny. So at the end of each month, doesn't matter where the income's coming from, I would divide it into 6 jars. The first jar is my essential jar, and that's for my living expenses, mortgage, car payments, utilities, petrol. No more than 55% of your monthly income should go on living expenses. There's a book called The Millionaire Next Door, and most millionaires in America have quite modest lifestyles. They live beyond their below their means. So no more than 55% of your monthly income should go on living expenses. Then I have 5% I'll give away to charity. No matter how much we complain, someone else has always got a worse life than you. And one of my mentors said to me, your problems are someone else's dreams. So we've got 55% living expenses, 5% for charity. Then we've got 4 jars left, which are 10% each. So the first one is savings. So for a rainy day, if we have another COVID lockdown, etc., to pay my bills. Then we have 10% for investment. So 10% of my monthly income always goes to investment. 10% into personal development, because you can only grow to the extent you grow. So I'm a big believer in personal development courses, workshops, books, education. And then the final 10% is enjoyment, fun. It's no use working hard, saving all your money. Because I learned that from my parents. My parents were working 2 jobs and they saved every single penny. They didn't spend at all, hardly enjoy their lives, and they regretted it now. So 55% living expenses, 5% charity, 10% personal development, 10% enjoyment, 10% savings, 10% investment.
I really like that. I really like the way the actually living your life is accounted for in there. And there's been times in my life where I look back and I'm not exactly long in the tooth, you know. I don't think I'm that old, but I've got the work-life balance all wrong. And I had to do that before I learnt my lesson in a way. And having a structure like that, something that you can adhere to, where you know what your budget is, you don't go over it. And if you're quite right, living a modest lifestyle is beneficial for any sort of investing, particularly if you want, unless you're making mega bucks, but those lucky people, that's certainly not me anyway. You know what I mean? So if you have a structure or if you have a plan, it's just about saving consistently. And I think that it sounds like you've accounted for that in your philosophy, I suppose.
Yeah. And I remember when I qualified straight after VT, I went straight and lived back at home, had a really simple car. And it was quite funny. People were laughing at me, and now they're not laughing at me now, because you got to make sacrifices. And going back to that book, The Millionaire Next Door, they did an experiment where they invited these millionaires for lunch. On the one side, they had caviar, the best steak, etc., champagne. Other side, they had normal burgers, chips. And most of the millionaires went to the side where there was burgers and chips, because that's what they were used to. Yeah, really? That's how they made their money. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd believe that, you know, because it's actually, I've got the books in front of me. I've probably read about five books on long-term investing, and there's certain kind of common ground between them all, and that is the first thing they mention in every single one. And there is how can I say, like a perception that because you earn more, you maybe have to spend more, which you can do, okay, but rare is the person who doesn't have some sort of limits on that, who actually becomes wealthy later in life. And I think that that's just a really important message and a really healthy thing to encourage in investing.
Definitely. Yeah, because once you upgrade your lifestyle, you never want to go down. You always want a bigger house, better car.
That's it. Well, that's the trouble, because it's a black hole as well. And unless you're literally a billionaire, where you can't, there is no limit to what you can buy, you can always find something to chuck your money at. It's absolutely true. And that's definitely something that I'm becoming a little bit more savvy to now, as the years go by, as I said. Yeah. But not that I've ever been really careless with my money, but I'm definitely a bit more of a tight-fisted, a bit more of a miser these days, but
Is that the Scot in you?
The Scot? Oh, Northern Irish, but close though. Northern Irish. Northern Irish are notorious for spending all their money on.
I know, every time I go to Belfast, they're so generous.
Yeah, exactly. They like a drink out there, so they spend a lot of their money on that. So I try to behave myself. Harry, you mentioned earlier you were talking a little bit about cash flow, and I'm just checking over here the terms that we use because I wrote them down. Cash flow or capital appreciation. So these are two things that you're conscious of when you're buying houses, and I'm gonna do my very best to give the layman's definition of what I believe those to be. But feel free. This is the uneducated person's sort of understanding of what they may be. Now you may change this. You may disagree. That's fair enough. So we've got cash flow. So that'll be your yield. That'll be the properties that you buy. And you've got one eye on the price, but the main thing you're thinking about is what's going to be my return at the end of the year. How much money can I make from rental and things like that? Yeah. And then the other one, capital appreciation. That's just where you're looking at an area, you think it's up and coming. They're building a new road. They're building HS2. You think the house is going to go up in value. Have I grasped those correctly? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Oh, smashing. Perfect. And that's where a lot of dentists come up to me and say, "Shall I invest in the north or the south?" And I go, there is no right answer. It depends on your strategy, what you want property to give you. If it's cash flow, more Midlands up north.
because you get better yields, but you don't get as
Right.
much capital appreciation if it's for capital appreciation or better pension pot down in the south.
Interesting. So even at this point, even though London has been sort of a bubble for however long now, I mean, that's very much my, from the outside looking in, knowledge of property. I always know that people who buy houses in London, they've went up exponentially in value over
Yeah, yeah.
the previous few years, previous few decades. And you believe that that trend is going to continue even now?
Yeah, London is a strange market because it's, as you say, it's its own bubble. It's not dictated by UK residents, it's more foreign overseas
I
investors.
see.
And what the government have done is made it harder for overseas investors to have the tax perks there, because there were favourable stamp duty capital gains tax for foreign investors, which have been clamped down on. So, central London is more riskier, but no one knows the trend. So we go more to outskirts. And what I've been finding with lockdown, people want a garden, so they're going for more the outskirts, like Wimbledon, where it's much more greener, much more space, or they have a garden. We may still have foreign investors parking because London is a safe haven. So a lot of investors from overseas will buy the Knightsbridge, Chelsea houses or flats, leave them empty, but it's nice, regulated, and know they can park their money and get the money out when they need it. So
Interesting.
central London is a strange one. More for the experienced investor. If you're completely new, I wouldn't recommend to invest in central London straight away. But once you know the area's nuances, then it may be a good bet long
Interesting.
term.
So there's no sign of that trend abating anytime soon. This is,
Now, some of the London properties we've been looking at just going back 10-15% above market value because people still want to buy in central London.
whoa, that is crazy. Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Fair enough. And the north of England, is there any particular? What do you think of Leeds? I'm based in Leeds, and I hear there's a lot of whispers and kind of old wives' tales that HS2 is going to make Leeds property go through the roof. So I've been thinking about buying in Leeds. Is that wrong? Is that a silly thing to think?
Yeah, if I had that pound for every time someone said the next golden hotspot, I'll be a billionaire. No,
Maybe
I
when
like
this is
Leeds.
over, actually, we can have a little chat, me and you. Yeah, you give me some tips.
So I like Leeds because I qualified from Leeds. But now, by the time the general public know about something, it's going to be affluent area. It's too late. You've missed the boat
Right.
because the
Okay.
deal would have done with the properties would have been done a year ago, and there's already inflated prices.
Hmm.
Um, So I'll say go back to the basics, make sure it's good yield, good quality property, and look at the long term. But yeah, don't second guess. I know people bought in certain areas because of HS2, the Olympics, etc. And if you bought early enough, where people didn't know about those areas, you would have been quids in. But once the general public know, you probably missed the boat.
Actually, that's, you know what? That's another thing that applies to general investing, another parallel that I
Yeah,
suppose I've never really considered. When you have something that's in a bubble, there's only so much. If there's a saying on Wall Street, if your taxi driver starts talking about an investment, it's time to get out of that investment, it's time to sell
yeah,
up,
yeah, yeah,
because there's only so much money that can go into it. And when something's suspended up here, if we go to Bitcoin in 20, I don't know whether you follow Bitcoin in crypto
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit,
yeah.
a little bit. So at the end of 2017, 17th of December, it hit its all-time high, $20,000. People were talking about it. It was on the news. And you don't
Yeah.
even need to know the first thing about investing to know that that's a red flag, you know? Because it's common. People are talking about it everywhere. There's only so much money that can go in. And
Yeah,
when there's
yeah.
not enough pressure pushing it up, it just falls under its own weight. And that's pretty much what happened, you know? It's not always as simple as that, but it's definitely a huge red flag. So houses are similar,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, when someone say,
Wow.
as you said, when the general public know about it, it's too late.
I saw a house in Burnley for £22,000 the other day. Surely it can't get any cheaper. Maybe is that a good investment?
Depends if you can rent it, because I'm a big Liverpool fan, and there's houses around Anfield that have been boarded up for years that you could probably buy for 15 grand, but no one wants to live there.
Around Anfield, I would have thought that would have been hot property.
So some areas are, but some of the ones really close are quite a bad area. So
Right.
you,
Okay.
so yeah, so you always got to look. Yeah, the price may be low, but can you rent it out? Who wants to
Right.
live there?
Cheap for a reason then. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Anyway, so oh yes, this was a question I got requested. Now, what we're going to do at the end, Harry, if we've still got time, we're going to freestyle a little bit because we've got some
Okay.
questions on the group. Which, if you're comfortable answering those, we'll come to those in just a minute.
Yeah.
But I've got one question. I'm going to take full credit for this one. And that's not in a positive sense either. I think you probably get asked this about 100 times a day. I'm sorry in advance. Is now a good time to buy in the UK housing market?
Okay. The best time to buy would have been 30 years ago. The second best time to buy is now. So because
Really? Oh, I see. Oh, I see. Is that I got you.
yeah,
I thought
no.
you meant specifically now. That's just the saying, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would sort of say it's a long people want to buy their own house, want to live in their own house. Also, as I said, because of restricted space, planning is quite strict. They have relaxed some regulation with planning. It's still a ball ache to get planning development through the local council. So I'll say it's a long term, slow and steady. It's not going to. I always say to people, property is not get rich quick scheme. It's get very rich, very long term scheme.
Okay.
So if you're in it for the long term, you will make it work there because I guarantee if you come back in 20, 30 years, we listen to this podcast, people say, I wish I invested in 2020 or 2021 there. So, no one knows what's around the corner, but people need houses to live in, whether to buy themselves or to rent. We're getting more fragmented families, more divorces, younger people leaving their parents a lot quicker, a lot sooner. So, obviously I'm a bit biased because that is my focus, but I would still say, property is a good time. It is a good time now to invest.
So there's a lot of factors, I suppose, that are unique to the UK market, is what I'm gathering from what you're saying, that mean that it's a good or it's a viable long-term investment, and it doesn't look like that's going to change.
Yeah, because you always want to have two exit strategies for property. So your main aim maybe to be renting it out. If you can't rent it, can you sell that property quite quickly? So I said there's always going to be buyers, there's all going to be tenants, etc. So I'm saying go for it.
Interesting. And what do you think about stamp duty and its its absence at the minute? And when do you think it might return to paralyze the UK housing market? Because I don't know if there's going to be too much, when we're into the very near future. That's obviously, at the minute, because credit is because of how the coronavirus situation is, there's not as much money about as there is traditionally. Do you think that that's going to return soon is my first question, and do you think that that's going to have a major effect when it does return?
Yeah, so we think the government's stupid. They may look a bit stupid, but they are quite clever in certain instances. So when they announced, they knew the property was going to crash because obviously people losing their jobs, can't keep up mortgages. So they wanted to give an artificial inflation to the property market, and that's where they made the stamp duty exemption. And it's a bit like what they did. They gave the property market a can of Red Bull. So they inflated the market for the short term. Obviously, they need to they've been giving away all these grants, loans, furlough payments. They need to get their money back. So I expect stamp duty exemption to end as soon I think it's January the 31st, is it? That they.
Is there actually a hard limit on it then? They've
I
beg your pardon, right. Showing my lack of knowledge there about houses.
So I'm sure it will go back to normal, the stamp duty, because they need that tax there.
Yeah.
And then what will happen, because the property market, as you said, credit is so low in terms of interest rates. The property market's been booming, so I do think there's going to be a correction in the market.
Yeah.
We're not in a financial recession, obviously, where it's because of a health-related recession, but there will be, I don't think it'll be a major crash, but there will be a slump in the property market as stamp duty exemption goes, interest rates go up. And the other thing that they risking on the quiet is capital gains tax. So when you sell a property, you pay capital gains tax, and it was normally at the end of the tax year. But from anything you sell from April this year onwards, you had to pay the capital gains tax within 30 days, which a lot of people didn't know about or they introduced. So that indication gives you they're going to increase the tax. They want their money as quick as possible. So the stamp duty exemption will end quite soon, and there will be a slump in the property market.
I see. So when you say they'll increase the tax, you think that it'll return and they'll also, make the tax more of a proportion of what you buy in terms of a percentage?
Yeah, it may not necessarily be stamp duty, but other taxes. So where I
Oh, I see.
said,
Oh, I thought
yeah,
you meant
yeah,
stamp duty specifically. Right.
yeah, yeah. So I think stamp duty is quite high, especially for second-time buyers.
Yeah.
But other taxes, I'm forecasting, where my savings jar, I'm putting 50% away each month for tax because
Right.
I expect there's only one way tax is going to go. They've got to get the money somehow.
Yeah, I do agree that they'll in all likelihood increase it after this is all hopefully over.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty much a given really at this point, isn't it? I should think so. There's
yeah,
only
yeah.
two
They got
ways a government can
yeah,
make money. They can either make it through printing money,
yeah,
which they're doing a lot of at the minute, or they can do it through increasing tax. So when all the financial levers are, they've pulled because they're all. We saw the other day. What did I see the other day? Was it 150 billion of printed currency?
but
The Bank of England are releasing over the
yeah,
next month.
yeah,
So they can only do that for so long before
yeah,
inflation
yeah.
goes through the roof. So this will be
That's it.
their second means.
Yeah, they'll give with one hand and take back with two hands.
Well, yeah, well that's the trouble. I mean, not to get too deep into conspiracy theories and things like that, but when they print money, inflation is actually a hidden tax on you
Yeah,
because it takes money from our bank account that we don't know about
yeah,
otherwise,
yeah,
and it's just another way for a government to generate money. But yeah,
yeah,
as
yeah.
I say, we'll not get too deep into the conspiracy aspect of it or anything of that nature. This is something I'm familiar with, and maybe something you've heard of as well. There's the financial economy and the real economy. So when the government creates money in the bank, because they sell it to other banks by issuing who buy their bonds,
Yeah, yeah,
what they tend to do is they invest it into financial apparatus such as stocks, such as houses, such as commodities and bonds for other companies. And a grossly disproportionate amount of that winds up in the housing sector. And this is why we see houses shoot up in value greater than, well, as a proportion to relative to the rest of the economy. So you say you go to the shop and you've got your chocolate bar and things like
yeah,
that. Maybe it goes up by like whatever inflation is, like 5-6% actual
yeah,
inflation. But the housing market is far beyond that. That's because a disproportionate amount of this printed money winds up in the financial economy and houses and things of that nature. Is that something you've come across, or is that something you teach on your course?
no, yeah. I've come across it. I don't teach it on the workshops, but yeah, I do that. Big, and also because you've got the big pension providers getting into property, and it always makes me laugh when financial advisors come and say to me, "Oh, we don't encourage our clients to invest in property. We say to invest in a pension." I go, "Well, half those pension funds invest 80% of your clients' money in property anyway. So you're
Really? I didn't know it was
indirectly,
that much. Wow.
yeah, you indirectly." So yeah, because I've been to auctions, and the way I found out 10, 12 years ago, I went to an auction. There was a guy in a three-piece suit right at the front. He must have bought about 20 million pounds worth of property. So I go, God, this guy, I need to meet him. So I said, okay, how come you bought so much? Where do you get the money from? He goes, no, I think it was a Aviva Life pension fund he was working for. Yeah,
Wow. So this is why property prices go through the roof, because they're being actively bought by pensions.
it's,
There's all this
I,
demand beyond
yeah,
people in the housing market. And that actually is another reason why stocks tend to go up historically.
yeah,
Because when you buy yourself a stock or when you buy yourself a house, you're effectively hijacking this vehicle that someone else is using to generate a profit for their long-term hedge fund and things like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So that they're artificially pushing the price up essentially, and you can
yeah,
own your part of that via through houses, via through stocks, things like that. But if you want
yeah.
houses, Harry is of course your man, and there's lots of reasons why, as Harry's just touched upon, that he believes housing, being diversified and having some money in housing is definitely a good idea.
Yeah. And also, yeah, follow other strategies as well in terms of, obviously, I would say become a master of one. Then once you made your money there, continue with that, but then diversify. So I'm always looking for other opportunities in terms of, that's why I looked at Forex trading, but it wasn't for me, and looking at other stuff. But yeah, people do watches, wine, you name it.
Yeah, of course. Diversify, diversify, diversify. It's the only free lunch on Wall Street, they say. That's another saying
Yeah.
I've heard. Right, smashing. Well, thank you so much so far, Harry. I think what you've said has been really informative. Certainly lots of things that I didn't know about houses, but I'm a self-confessed total rookie when it comes to the subject. I'm totally unknowledgeable, ill-knowledgeable. I don't know what the adjective is, but I certainly don't know the first thing. So I hope everybody's learned loads from that. Harry, of course, has been doing this for a long time, so really knows what he's talking about. What I'm going to do, Harry, if it's all right with you, we're going to freestyle a little bit. So what I mean by that is we've got some questions. I posted on the group earlier a little promo post just to let people know we're doing this podcast tonight. And I asked on the post, I said, has anybody got any burning questions that they would love to ask Harry? And a few people have piped up with a few interesting questions, which I thought were quite good. So Harry hasn't seen these before. We're just going to freestyle a little bit, but they're pretty good. I think people will get some value from them. So Jazz Neat, I've been on his podcast before, top guy. Jazz Neat has asked, have after taxes, solicitor fees, tenant headaches, and opportunity costs, is real estate still superior to stocks and shares?
Yeah, so was it tax? So everyone looks at the worst case scenario, so tenant problems. So as I said, if you go for an area of gross yield of 6%, you know there's going to be more tenants than properties because that's why it's got a 6% gross yield. Then you could pick the cream or the top of the tenants to get the best tenants at your properties. So over 20 years investing in property, I've only had 2 evictions out of all that time because I've got good quality properties and we pick good quality tenants. And we always use letting agents because they can vet the tenants properly. I mean, the other one was tax. Yeah, depending on how, there has been obviously some tax penalties with mortgage interest. But if you buy under a limited company, you can still claim the mortgage tax relief. So before, if you have a mortgage of, say, £500 and the rent was 900, your profit was 400, you would only get taxed on that. But if you buy in your individual name, you get taxed on the whole £900 rent. But if you buy it as a limited company, you can claim that £400 tax and mortgage off your tax bill.
Oh, right. So it's about being a little savvy there.
Yeah, so it's the structure, how you set up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
There. So it's tax, problem tenants.
And solicitor fees was the final one, I believe. The final part of that trio.
Yeah, solicitor fees. It's only about £700. I don't know what solicitor. I don't know what solicitor you're using. There. Yeah. And there. So, and also, when we buy from distressed sellers, we pay for their solicitor fees, but we take that off our offer. So it actually doesn't cost us any money in terms of legal fees.
Right, cool, fair enough. So that's a really comprehensive answer to that. Hope that's helped, Jazz. Really good question, by the way, because I think probably a lot of people tend to think that to themselves about property, actually. So that's a good question, Jazz. Then we've got Victoria Michelle. I'm just reading this question. There's layers to this question. There's about 4 here.
Do I get CPD points?
Yeah. So Victoria Michelle, little shout out for Victoria Michelle. She has asked, what type of buy-to-let mortgage would you use? A repayment or interest only one, and why?
Excellent question. So it all depends on your strategy. So if you want to buy numerous properties, then you want maximum cash flow. So you would want interest only because you don't want to pay the debt off. And then you can use less money and then you can buy more properties. If you're a investor who only wants 1 or 2 properties for a better pension pot, then it's probably going to be better for you to get capital repayment and interest so you can pay the debt off. So you've got 2 properties mortgage free when you come to retire. So yeah, if you're looking at maximizing your income, go for interest only. If you're looking for a better pension pot, go for repayment and interest.
Oh, nice one. So it's a pretty black and white kind of answer to that one then, really? Oh, that's not often you get that in finance, is it? A clear, concise, clean-cut answer. Lovely jubbly. More of those, please. Oh, okay. This is a nice question, actually. So this is from Josh Evans, and this is one that's very pertinent to our current circumstances. So this is a goodie, actually, Josh. Well done. Josh wants to know, is now a good time to think about investing in holiday let property given the recent boom in staycations? I really like that. I think that's good.
Yeah, yes and no. So
Oh, okay.
depending, so yes, definitely stay vacation is going to go on the up, and we're actually looking at a project at the moment that I'm invested in. So you got to have a look. Say, can you get tenants all year round, or
Oh, I see.
people
Yeah, of
visiting the property?
course.
So if you've got a rush season for summer only and it's empty for, I don't know, 3 quarters of the year, then you're going to wipe out any profit you make in your peak times
That's
with
really
the
true.
void
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So you need to have a look at, yeah, it may be, you can still get certain properties that will rent out throughout the year. So you need to pick wisely and carefully that you can rent it for at least 11 months out of 12.
It seems like it might be a bit of a headache then, because you have to think about who you're getting in week on week too, and your returns aren't necessarily that great.
Yeah, so a lot of
Yeah,
people do Airbnb, but it's quite time consuming, a lot of expenses,
definitely. Yeah,
costs. You got factoring the cleaning, washing, all that kind of stuff.
that's true. Yeah, fair enough. So maybe might be a good idea to give the staycation houses a bit of a wide
Yeah, especially
berth,
if it's your
maybe.
first, if you're new to property, stick to the bread and butter, buy to let, simple family renting it.
Okay, good answer. Fair enough. Right, next up we've got Peter Doyle. For someone in their early 30s trying to make the big decision before 40, would you advise practice property or trading or investment? It's somewhat linked to what we've said before, but Peter's just chucked the possibility of buying a practice in there as well. Peter has also said his main focus is on quality of life. Obviously, money helps here, but he wants to be able to spend time with his growing family. So yeah, that's putting another little slant or twist on it that's probably going to be relevant. So what's your thoughts on that one, Harry?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in business and property. Buying your own business, well, obviously, I take it's going to be a dental practice, especially for the early years, you're going to be working 18 hours a day, slugging your guts out there. So if he wants family time, maybe a business is not going to be the best choice.
Yeah,
And it may be investing or property that he can do where I say work once, get paid forever. So you're making passive income in the background so you can take more time off work. You're not reliant on your dentistry, so you can spend more family time. And I always say to people, business and property is going to make you good money. And I never say it's either or. Do both if you can.
yeah,
But
absolutely. Sorry, were you finished on that one? Was there something you
so
wanted
so
to
yeah,
add?
but so yeah, his question was obviously about family time, and then business is probably not going to be the best option if he wants to spend more family time.
Yeah, fair enough. The little part where you threw in about your family there, Peter, yeah, that's very relevant, and I suppose that kind of Harry's given you a good answer there, hinged on what you've said, I suppose, which is great. And next thing we've got Amir Imtiaz, and Amir would like to know. Oh, we've actually just covered this, which is quite helpful. So
Okay.
it was you when we discussed earlier about purchasing a property under your own name or as a limited company. So am I right in saying, if I understood what you said correctly earlier, Harry, that if possible, it's always a good idea to buy it under a limited company name?
Yes and no. So obviously,
Oh, not
first, we're
always.
not
Okay.
qualified to give financial advice. So obviously, speak
Yeah.
to your
Yes,
accountant
none of us
because
are. Small
he,
disclaimer. Should have said that at the
yeah,
start. But yeah, Harry's
yeah,
quite right.
yeah. So it depends on your personal circumstances. So yeah, the benefits of a limited company is you get the tax relief of your mortgage payment. It's, as you know, with a limited company, it's much harder to get your money out. With buying your own name, you can get your money out a lot easier with
Oh,
less
okay.
tax, but then you can't claim the mortgage interest off your profit. So there's pros and cons with each
I
one.
see. Because if I go back to business studies class, which was a long time ago for me, I recall that a limited company, it's a separate legal entity, and that would mean that you have to pay yourself a wage from that company to be able to withdraw the funds. And you obviously you can't pay yourself such a wage as to totally bankrupt the company.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
therefore, you've got this extra layer or obstacle before you can actually get your hands on what you've put into it. Is that the reason why then?
Yeah, so you've got
Kind of.
dividends. You can pay up to, I think, about 8,500 per year without the extra tax. Anything more than that, you're going to get dividends tax, corporation tax. And also, don't forget, with the limited, it's in the public domain. It's going to be on company's house. So if you did want to be more private, not let anyone know what you're doing, then limited company may not be the best option either as well.
What about if you've got your company in the British Virgin Islands, where you are right now, Harry?
Yeah, that's exemption. Yeah, you can do a
That's why
time.
Harry lives out
It's
there.
just sometimes, yes. Yeah.
Well played, Harry. Right, and the Amir Imtiaz has also asked another question. Oh, this is a good one, actually. I like this. Again, maybe slightly difficult to answer, so if it is, feel free to say. Amir has said, I suppose as a rule of thumb, what would you classify as a good return on investment annually in the current market in housing?
So say 6% gross yield. So that's the annual rent divided by the market value. So that's what I would be going for myself, 6%.
Right. And is that fairly average, or is that a slightly higher return on investment that you place upon yourself because you have experience in the property market?
Yeah, it's a slightly higher level because we want to stress test. Obviously, up in, for example, Grimsby, I know you could get 15% gross yield. Central London, you'd be lucky to get 2-3% gross yield. That's 6% based on current interest rate. So if the interest rates went up by, or the base rate went up by 1%, then I would change that figure to 7% gross yield. So it's not a fixed 6%, it's depending on what the base rate is at the moment.
Right, I see, fair enough. So perhaps it's not as simple as this, but surely Grimsby would be a good area to invest in, really, or...
For cash flow, but not for capital appreciation. Yeah, because you can get a house for £40,000. You'll come back in 20 years' time and it'll still be worth £40,000.
Right, I see. Interesting, fair enough. And then another... Sorry, mate, we finished.
And it will smell of fish as well.
You have to bear that in mind. And Amir's just said, as well as that, well, we've talked, he wants to know about capital gains tax and how that might affect your income later, further down the line. Do you expect there to be an increase in capital gains tax? But we've already said that we pretty much both unanimously agree, and it's looking pretty likely that is going to go up. As to how much is difficult to say. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that, really, Harry?
Yeah, so obviously capital gains tax you would only pay once you sold the property. As we said, we're expecting it to go up, but also don't forget now, since April this year, you have to pay your capital gains tax within 30 days of selling a property. So just be wary of that.
Interesting. Yeah. And would capital gains not apply if you were earning over 12,300 in terms of as rent every year?
So there's two types of tax you would pay in property. One is income tax, which you pay on the rental profits.
Oh, I didn't know that. So it actually falls under income tax.
Yeah, so rental profits. So rental profits will fall under income tax. It's only when you sell a property you would pay capital gains tax. Every person has an allowance per year. So I think it's about 12,000 at the moment. So the first 12,000 per year will be free from capital gains tax per person.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, and one final question for Amir Imtiaz. Amir Imtiaz has been a source of a lot of inspiration for me and Harry tonight. This is really interesting. He's really driven the conversation. So shout out to you, Amir. Thank you so much. Final question. What is an ideal property for you to what would you consider the ideal property in terms of purchasing, Harry, in terms of a return on investment, I suppose, is what Amir's getting at. And he said student-let, HMOs, which I've never heard of before, city flats, suburban, semi-detached. Is there kind of a hot sector or something that you specialize in or you particularly think is a good investment?
Yeah, so I go for the first-time buyer market, which is normally 2 to 3 bedroom terrace houses. So I find the first-time buyers, if they can't afford to buy the house, they want to live in the house near good schools. So it's a young couple of young kids at the local school. And what I find is they look after the properties. They've got 2 income streams coming in. their kids are at the local school, so they actually end up staying with me for about 7 or 8 years because they don't want to move because the kids they want to change the kids' schools.
See,
And
yeah.
also, if I need to sell that property because the first-time buyer market wants that property, it's going to normally be quite a quick sale because they've got no chain. I tend to stay away from flats and apartments because you've got service charge that eats away into your profit, ground rent. There's no flexibility in terms of creating extra rooms or extending the property. Also, what I find, you get more temporary tenants. It may be the cynic in me, but you normally get a young couple that are living together for the first time, realize after 3 months they hate each other's habits, separate, split up, and then move out after 6 months. You've got to find more tenants there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens. We'll just say that, shall we? It happens. But yeah,
So,
you're quite right. I suppose tenant selection is definitely a big factor, something that you think about.
yeah, the first time buyers are the biggest market. They can move in quickly to buy or to rent. They want to live in a house. They've got kids and they've got the local schools.
Awesome, brilliant. Hope that's answered your question, Namir. And I'm really sorry about this, Omar. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about this, Harry. But I've just spotted at the bottom of the page that Omar has asked another question. But it's I think it's a quickie, and I think it's one that we've already covered. Do you think there is going to be a property price crash? We suspect that it might be likely when
Yes.
at the end of January, just as you said earlier.
Yeah, because of the artificial inflation, the interest rates, we are due a slump in the market. No one knows obviously how severe and how deep it's going to be and how long it's going to be, but I do expect some correction in the property market.
Okay, so might be worth thinking about, Omar. Okay, cool. Well, anyway, thank you so much to Harry on behalf of me, on behalf of everybody who's listening. He's been absolutely wonderful. I think we're just scratching the surface of Harry's knowledge perfectly, because that was amazing. There was a few points that I was lost there. The people out who are watching, who know a lot more about property than me, will have been able to follow it, I'm sure. And you know what? Even if you don't know the first thing, there's a huge amount you can take away from this, and certainly things that I'll be bearing in mind if and when I ever do get around to buying a house. Harry, is there anything that you'd like to say just to round things up?
No. Thank you again, James, for the invitation. Fantastic group. As I said, there's no right or wrong way in terms of investing. It's obviously become an expert, become a master, become focused, disciplined, learn the trade, learn the content, stick with it, be determined. But yeah, with everything, it always goes back to your why. Why are you doing it? And you need to invest because obviously it's limited money, how much you can earn with your own hands. Time-wise, is what you do with the money that's probably more important than how much money you make at the beginning.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think investing, certainly something that I've had my eyes open to since I began investing, is just how much I honestly think it should be a life skill for everybody.
Yeah.
Because most of us have some spare cash, and that cash can be put to work with relatively little effort in certain specific ways that it is very likely to grow over time.
Yeah.
One of those ways you can do that is stocks. Another way you can do that is commodities, gold, things like that. Another way you can do that is crypto, and something that is a little bit safer. There is the saying, of course, safe as houses, is where Harry comes in, and that's houses.
Yeah, definitely. And as it's a long-term game, so it's not like, as I said, keep on saying, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a healthy mentality to have, not just specifically with houses, but with anything. So finally, just for anybody who didn't catch it at the start, it's Dental Property Club. You can find it on Google. You can find it on the internet. If you were to get in touch with them, Harry will, of course, be there to greet you. He'll talk you through how you can expect him to help you. Harry, anything else you'd like to say on Dental Property Club? It is, of course, your company, your area of expertise.
Yeah, so yeah, any members of the group, feel free to private. I am in the Investor James's group, so you can private message me if you've got any specific questions that you want to ask in private. That's fine. I'm happy to answer anyone's questions listening to the podcast.
Nice one. And of course, this podcast is going out to the world, so there may not even be people who are on the group. So if you did want to join the group, it's on Facebook. It's called Dentists Who Invest, Community Group for Dentists Who Enjoy Trading. I very much started it with the ethos of educating dentists on how to invest responsibly. A lot of us do it, but a lot of us don't know how to do it. And there's a lot of knowledge on there. There's a lot of people who know so much about investing. And there's so many different asset classes. To have that spread of knowledge is really a remarkable thing, and totally unbiased as well, because there's no advertising on there, there's nothing like that. It's just a community group. That's what it is. That's what it always will be. It's for dentists to get together and discuss things of that nature. And I think it is particularly pertinent or relevant because of what's happening at the minute in the world with COVID. Really, we don't know what's going to happen from day to day. We're on lockdown 2. What about if lockdown 3 happens? What about if we actually go back to when we were in March and none of us could leave our houses? It's possible. I didn't take it seriously until lockdown 2 came along. Well, I didn't take it seriously, that any of this could have happened until we found ourselves where we were. So it's just made us all think that perhaps dentistry, it's not really something that we can rely on as much as we once did. It's a little fragile, and it's definitely worth thinking about things, not just for the short term, not just because of COVID, but so that you can have a great quality of life going forwards. And whatever path you go down, whichever path you're interested in, there's hopefully going to be someone on that group will help you. And if you're into property, then Harry will definitely be there to assist in any way that he can. Wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Harry.
Thank you, James.
Can I just say, it's been absolutely amazing tonight. I've learned so much. Thank you so much for coming on the very first episode of Dentals Who Invest podcast. I think the bar has been set quite high. I'm sure everybody who's watching will agree. I'm going to have to do some real legwork to top this one, but I'll see what I can do. It's all downhill from here. It's all downhill from here, probably.
No, I'm sure it won't be. I'm sure it won't be. Yeah. I'm looking forward to your next podcast as well.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I'll have to have a little think about who I can get on there. If anybody wants to reach out to me, they think that they might be able to do a good podcast, or they'd like to do a podcast, a collaboration with me on anything that they think might be relevant, then feel free to reach out. Harry, it's been a pleasure. I'll hopefully speak to you again soon.
Okay. Thanks a lot, James.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.